And we're going to look at the day's top business news. Brian Quinn is joining us here on set. He's starting in China today. The government, amid all of the latest news we've brought you, of course, kicking off its annual gathering of its parliament. A major focus on the economy, Brian.
Stuart, the National People's Congress is China's rubber stamp parliament. Its annual gathering served largely to announce decisions already made by Communist Party leadership. This year, the government has set its most modest economic growth target since 1991, aiming for 4.5% to 5% growth in 2026. Beijing planning to inject some $44 billion into state banks as it seeks more domestic investment into the country's defense and tech sectors. Despite a record trade surplus of nearly $1.2 trillion last year, the Chinese economy is facing a host of challenges, including a long-running crisis in its real estate market, weak consumer spending, and major trade tensions with both the U.S. and the EU. Some of the hardest hit by this slump are China's young people. Youth unemployment is at nearly 19%. The situation has pushed some to seek spiritual help in finding a job. France 24's team in Beijing sent us this report.
It's one of Beijing's busiest spiritual sites. While many here are praying for clarity, stability, or good health, among Lama temples' smoke and incense sticks, others are searching for something else.
I'm graduating from university this year and I'll need to find a job. So my wish this year is mainly about my career. There are specific halls dedicated to career-related wishes. You go there, offer incense, and tell the Buddha your wish.
Almost 13 million students are expected to graduate this year, a national record. Ballooning graduate numbers and a limited supply of skilled work have led to high youth unemployment. While 2025 saw an urban unemployment rate of 5.2%, in the last year the youth unemployment figure has hovered between 15 and 19%.
2025 actually is the worst year for fresh graduates' job market. It is quite ironic because they are also the best educated batch in Chinese history. But because of this mismatched expectation of the kind of job they can get, then many of them cannot be employed within the year.
Experts say most young people will eventually find a job. Some are forced to settle for work below their skill level. Others, like 28-year-old finance graduate Du Jinhua, rejoin family businesses.
I did look for other jobs, but I wasn't satisfied with the pay. Since my mother's run this place for over 20 years, I helped out here, felt it was okay, and decided to stay and work in sales.
Back in Lama Temple, prayers continue. In January, Beijing promised hardcore support to stabilize employment, stepping up internship and traineeship recruitment for graduates. Despite the policies, many here still feel they have to turn to the heavens for help.
Yang Kim is in Broomby there. Let's check in on the markets then, Brian. How are they shaping up today?
Well, the war in Iran continuing to send crude oil prices higher on Thursday. Insurance premiums for oil tankers crossing the Strait of Hormuz up some 1,200%, despite a pledge from the Trump administration to provide such insurance itself. Brent crude contracts gaining around 3.25%. WTI is up 3.5%. European indexes losing a bit of ground Thursday as investors remain skittish over the war. Energy companies are gaining on higher oil prices. Travel, though, down again. London dipping below the flat line shortly after the open. Paris and Frankfurt down nearly 0.5%. On the Asian markets, shares in Chinese oil refiners took a big hit after Beijing ordered them to halt exports of diesel and gasoline in an effort to ensure domestic supply. Hong Kong and Shanghai, though, still making some modest gains. The Kospi in Seoul lost more than 12% on Wednesday. It bounced back nearly 10% on Thursday, led by chip makers Samsung and SK Hynix. Korean President Lee Jae-myung is calling for an emergency financial package to help hedge his country's high exposure to disruption of Middle Eastern energy supplies. Here he is.
I ask that you implement emergency measures to stabilize supply for crude oil, gas and other key inputs while also pursuing mid to long-term plans to diversify import sources.
And finally for business, yet another setback for the Trump administration's tariff policies, Brian.
So last month, Stuart, will recall the U.S. Supreme Court struck down President Trump's use of 1977's International Emergency Economic Powers Act to impose sweeping tariffs on imports. Trump quickly then slapped 10% tariffs on all imports. That a blow to trading partners like the EU, which has paused ratification of the trade deal it struck with Trump last summer for 15% tariffs on European goods. On Wednesday, a U.S. trade court ordered the government to begin issuing tariff refunds to American businesses that paid them. Many, though, are less than optimistic about seeing the money. Caroline Baum explains.
U.S. businesses are weighing their options after a trade judge ordered the Trump administration on Wednesday to refund businesses for illegal emergency tariffs. Lee Siegel, who sells products for kindergartens and daycares, says a refund would be an immense relief.
An announcement by the government of a refund of the tariffs would make a significant difference, not just for us, for every company that's sitting on millions of dollars of inventory in the U.S. that's burdened with these tariffs.
Tariffs imposed by U.S. President Donald Trump, ranging from 10 to nearly 50%, have plagued American importers since April 2024. And refunds would total over $100 billion. But despite the ruling, Siegel is not so optimistic about getting his money back.
It's really the inconsistency and the chaotic approach and the instability that really makes it very, very difficult.
Since the Supreme Court ruled on February 20th that the use of emergency tariffs exceeded Trump's authority, over 2,000 businesses, including FedEx, Costco, and L'Oreal, have sued for full refunds in the U.S. Court of International Trade. But 97% of U.S. importers are small businesses. They paid roughly $55 billion of the $175 billion in tariffs collected by the U.S. last year. Many say they lack the time and resources to sustain a court battle to get their money back. Trump has previously dismissed the idea of refunds, saying the companies would be in court for the next 5 years before being reimbursed.
They'll believe those refunds when they see them, Stuart.
Indeed. Brian, thanks a lot. Brian Quinn with the business on France 24.